Alright, so let's see. So first of all, let me give you one of these little pieces of paper so that you can download these references that I'm going to be using to show you. On that website, I give these away for free.
Oh, thank you. Is this your website?
Yeah. And this is what I've been working on for 10 years because, frankly, 10 years ago, the government basically ruined my whole entire life, basically, over one headlight, and I looked high.
Oh, that's
even though I made the officer say I passed the sobriety test driving safely.
Yeah.
Now that I've spent 10 years studying this, they can't enforce those laws upon me any longer.
Okay. Perfect, man. Yeah.
So,
works out, huh?
Yeah. So basically, let me start by giving you the spiel here, and then I'll get into the issue with the officer in question.
No worries, man. Of course, man.
So you can see on the video there, the first of over 100 videos I have, which is the one that I've provided for people so far. An officer stopped me a few years back for one headlight, or bike light I mean, and I explained to him, these are the actual basic principles of law right here, which two officers have told me that's over 90% of what we do that's not enforceable after I've explained this to them. Mm-hmm. All victimless crimes and civil offenses are unconstitutional. Okay. So this is why. This is the Arizona statute for stop and ID, and I need to add the Supreme Court cases, so this goes in every state just the same. That in the United States we have a right to privacy, so we only have to tell an officer our true full name when they stop us, not show ID, except for, licenses. And only when there's probable evidence of a criminal act. Right. Although the state law here says reasonable suspicion, I have Supreme Court cases that specifically say that exact phrase is not acceptable. We need to fix that. It says that amounts to whatever an officer wants. It has to be probable to a reasonable and prudent person who checks facts and uses reason. So that means that without probable evidence of a criminal act, that you just can't even demand my name, and you can't even enforce that statute, as I explained the officer in the video. Right. And then the Supreme Court has made it very clear that without some kind of an injury or harm or threat or endangerment, at least, to some humans' rights, there cannot be a crime. Because, as it says in Arizona's and other states' constitutions, to protect and maintain individual rights is the only purpose of government. And in the U.S. Constitution, it basically comes down to establish justice and secure the blessings of liberty equally. Basically, it's the same points. And so because of that, all victimless crimes and civil offenses are actually called deprivation of rights under color of law. And as I have explained to the cops, as a matter of fact, yesterday, Edward Hutchinson told me that I couldn't be on the meeting at Red Mountain Freeway and the 101 over here. Okay. Politely, very politely. Most Tempe cops I'm actually very impressed with. And so I called the police department and I explained to them how that violates everything I've just explained to you. Right. And that, so if an officer tickets me or arrests me, that I'll be filing criminal charges under federal law 18 U.S.C. 242 and 241 for deprivation of rights under color of law, conspiracy to deprive, and filing suit under 42 U.S.C. 1983 and 1986 for even neglecting to prevent anything they reasonably should know is contrary to these fundamental principles. Which, again, two cops have told me is over 90% of what you do. And now I know from speaking to hundreds of cops for several years that it's the legal advisors are the ones responsible for this, and the judges. And I'm about to begin filing charges, which is the reason why we're here, because I made this phone call. Right. So I've spent 10 years figuring this stuff out, because I swore the oath too in the Army in 03. Right. Yeah. And so now I'm about to begin filing federal and state civil criminal charges and all of liens and all of those things against every officer in the entire government. I'm about to serve notice to congressmen, mayors, police chiefs across the entire country. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So then that covers for the most part for that part. So now that we have that,
thanks, also, man. That's a lot of information. Thanks.
Yes. Also, you can grab this one. That's the law for police encounters, which is the one that I just went over, and then the basic justice system basic rules is stuff like your right to release from jail, and it covered a few other things like trespass.
Are those on here or no?
Those are all on there. Okay, cool. Like trespass means except when premises are open to the public, and the definition of state I think I have on here. They try to say you're trespassing on ADOT property. Maybe I don't have that one. The A means Arizona, which means state, which is legally defined as the people, the public. So that means public property, and that's how I got one case dismissed. So then this one here, though, why harmless civil and criminal charges must be dismissed. This is basically a summary of everything I've just explained to you. How we only have to say name or submit to legitimate search warrants and arrest. All that's pretty much on here. So this would be the one that I might use when someone pulled me over.
Okay.
To serve a notice of claim. I'm also preparing an actual notice of claim so I can actually pull one out and fill it out and serve it to an officer on the spot.
Hey, that's smart, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so now for the officer at hand.
Yeah.
So this is where we get to the unfortunate part.
Yes, sir.
Tempe police officer A.J. Butters, I believe it was Andrew Jeremy Butters, I think. I've checked on the police department websites.
Right.
Honestly, he is not fit to be a part of the force. He's making you guys look bad. And I think he's going to have to be removed because he seems like an individual who's not competent to be a police officer or hold any authority over any person. Because now I have evidence of 4 actual crimes that he refused to enforce. In my case, a few days ago, it was late at night, I think it was 2 nights ago, and clearly, I would say, clearly a homeless vagrant person out of his mind talking and probably on meth, which even Officer Butters, that was his first question, are you on methamphetamine, sir? Well, I walked up to the bus stop. I was more than 6 feet away on the other side of my bicycle, waiting downwind from him, being polite, and he's like, if you don't get the fuck over there, I'm going to beat your ass. And I was like, excuse me? I'm not downwind from you. I'm fine here. And he repeated, if you don't get on the fucking sidewalk, I'm going to beat your ass. And I said, okay. And I walked over here and I called 911. And so I said to the 911 operator exactly that.
Right.
And I was like, isn't that a felony? And she said no. And I was like, well, I think it is because I've dealt with this kind of thing before. Actually, I have an aggravated felony conviction I need to have overturned because I threw a cop's taser in the road once during an unlawful arrest.
Oh, wow.
He said, I'm going to tase you. I said, no, wait, I have the law right here. I was trying to show you what I showed him. Yeah. And he says, I'm going to tase you. And I'm like, no, wait, I have the law right here. I was soliciting on a sidewalk. Okay. Everyone agrees that's a First Amendment right. Okay. And then he went for his cuffs, so I threw that taser in the road, and I do not regret it. And I will get that overturned. Okay. And the city's going to get sued for it. But, so, back to the point. So, the 911 officer said, no, that's not a felony. As I was talking to them, Officer A.J. Butters and his partner pulled up pretty quickly, so you know I finished the call. Yeah. Now, Officer Butters came up to me confrontationally, as if I had been the one doing something wrong. And this is where it started to go bad. So let me see. The first thing was, so I was explaining to him what just happened as I did with you. And I said, isn't that a felony, just like on the 911 call? He said, no, it's not. And again, I said, I think it is. So then he went over to talk to the other guy, and that's when he started saying, are you on methamphetamine, sir? Do you have any mental disorders, all that? And so while he was doing that, I was looking up, I think it's ARS 13-1502 for us, threatening intimidation. I have it, well,
1402?
I think it's
1502 is trespassing.
Then it's 1302 or 12.
1202. 1202.
Yeah, okay, that was it. Yeah, 13-1202. Okay, so I looked it up and it says threatening intimidation. Basically, to threaten to cause physical injury to somebody is a class 1 misdemeanor. So I was wrong about the felony part. And so then I was reading it. The officer was here to my right, and the individual was on the bus stop still, and I was about the same 10 feet south of him. So I said to the officer who had been confrontational to me as if I shouldn't have called the police, that I just wanted you guys to be here when I did this so there wouldn't be a fight, which I thought was a completely justified thing to do. Right. And then I looked the guy right in the eyes and I read the actual statute, 13-1202, and I looked him right in the eyes and said, so you better not be threatening to assault people because that is a crime. And then I told the officer that was basically what I wanted to get done here. Right. And then he was still actually arguing that this guy does have a right to assault me if I'm too close to him. And I'm like, no, that is a crime. He does not have that right. And he said, well, he said you were like up in his face like that. Right. And I'm like, okay, well, then I got my phone out and I tried to start recording, but I didn't hit the right button. And I explained, I said, okay, I hereby declare under penalty of perjury, this is what happened, I repeated myself, and that he's lying to you, which is, that's another crime, lying to police. And so then the officer was like, well, how am I supposed to take your word over his?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's hearsay. This counts as a fact and evidence in court. I have the case law in my pocket. So he was still just saying, like, well, as if this guy does have the right to threaten me if I'm too close to him to assault me, which is not correct. And so then he went back over to talk to that guy some more, and that was when I got up and I turned my phone on to record, and then for my phone recording I went through all this again.
Yeah.
And then the officer came back over to talk to me, and I said, okay, so here's the thing. I could push this. I could file an affidavit and swear in a penalty of perjury what really happened. I could file threatening intimidation and lying to an officer to him. And I could probably file charges against you, officer, but I think that we've done what we needed to. I just wanted to make sure this guy doesn't go doing any of this again.
Yeah.
And honestly, the guy was starting to cry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then I said, okay, that's fine. And I went on my way.
Okay.
And I'll tell you also, I went down a little ways to another bus stop, and that guy walked past me, and he was crying. And I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
So I stood up and I said, what was it? If you fuck with me, you're going to prison tonight.
You told him that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he was like trying to, he couldn't even say a sentence properly. He was trying to apologize, I'm pretty sure. And so I got on the other side of the bike and stood up and I repeated myself, if you fuck with me, you're going to prison tonight. And he just kept walking, so that was the end of that.
Yeah.
So then I called 911 back, and to make sure they were getting recording. I know they are recording.
Right.
And then I went through pretty much everything I just told you.
Yeah.
Of
Basically,
how that was
extra.
wrong.
Yeah.
How the 911 operator said it's not a crime, it is a class 1 misdemeanor, and how the officer was basically defending that guy as if he has a right to threaten to assault me because I'm too close because of the virus.
Right.
Which is not correct. So then I went on Facebook and I posted all this, and this is where it gets a little bit worse for that officer. This alone, I don't think would necessarily be enough to really necessarily do much to the officer, except for maybe, a little talk. Mm-hmm. But then my friend, who works for his father, who owns properties, at least 3 or 4 occasions the same officer has refused to enforce trespassing, vandalism, and illegal entry laws. When they had told him people were vandalizing their mailboxes, their washing machines repeatedly, people they'd trespass from the property keep coming back. One guy who probably also had mental issues walked right into an apartment of a couple of women when their door was open, which obviously is not acceptable.
Right.
That's home invasion. And A.J. Butters apparently is defending the criminals and refusing to enforce these valid criminal laws. And when my friend was very upset, and he explained how this has been a repeated thing with that officer, A.J. Butters, and that his father even was mad enough at A.J. Butters once to turn to the other officers and demand that they trespass A.J. Butters from his property because he's so fed up with how that officer is treating him and not doing his job.
Right.
And so once I heard that, I'm like, well, now I think I am going to have to get this officer fired because this is not acceptable. Because I'm honestly very impressed with most Tempe police, but he's making you guys look bad.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm intending to start filing charges, and he could bring some other people down with him.
Okay.
So that, and then was there something else? Just the one about how, and then yesterday, Ethan Hutchinson told me I couldn't be trespassing, and I called the police department.
Who's that?
Ethan Hutchinson, Tempe Police.
Where were you? Where was this?
Red Mountain Freeway in McClintock.
Okay.
And he was polite. I have nothing against him.
Okay.
It was just that I made sure and I called the police department, non-emergency, and so there's
let
another.
them know.
Yeah,
I got you, man.
So this point on this one is, as I explained to them, as I said, if I do get ticketed or arrested, I'll be filing charges against that officer and the police chief and the mayor and their legal advisors.
Yeah.
So for this issue, the officer didn't do anything wrong. It's the mayor and the police chief and their legal advisors, who I know they're depending on telling them what to do, and the judges, who are the ones who are responsible for this. Because it was between 2 and 6 or more years ago where I was getting arrested and ticketed and going through court and videotaping dozens of videos of Tempe and surrounding city officers trying to tell me that I'm trespassing on the freeway exits. And they're still, I'm being told by people now, they are still arresting people for this randomly.
Right.
And that is absolutely a federal crime. And since I've served notice directly to this police chief and mayor years ago when I was getting these exact kind of
From
cases,
where? Sorry.
I believe it was an email, honestly.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? From what city?
This city?
Tempe?
Tempe mayor and police chief, yeah. Okay. So it was between 2 to 4 years ago where I was getting cases like this against me, trespass on ADOT. And I got at least one of those dismissed. And I served to the Tempe police email, the police chief and the mayor, a notice of claim explaining everything I've been explaining to you about how that cannot be trespassing, cannot be a crime, violates color of law statutes.
Yep.
So the fact that it's still happening, the mayor and the police chief and their legal advisors are liable, and I do intend to begin filing suits against them now.
This is for the trespassing
Yeah,
stuff. Okay.
they should have stopped this years
Okay.
ago.
Okay.
So now you have pretty much everything.
The story.
That's pretty much all of it at this point.
Do you mind if we just address at this point, because it sounds like you have other avenues for what you're telling, what you just finished telling me right now? Just address the situation with Officer Butters.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And I know, like, in the body worn camera video, you explained it to me right now. Your intent was to tell this gentleman basically to explain to him the ARS code for threats, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree that as police officers we shouldn't be biased towards any one person?
Of course.
Is that pretty
the
fair,
whole
right? Like,
principle is equal.
Right,
human
equal.
rights.
Okay,
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I kind of, it's all right. I know me too, man. I want to just explain to you that a lot of times we can't. The method and the way that we remain unbiased is that we typically only go on facts, something provable.
Oh yeah, I don't have an issue with that one.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I figured on that one it would have, if I had pushed it, I could have said, "I'll put it in writing and sign under penalty of perjury," and then you have something the courts.
And I understand that, but
I didn't want to push it.
Right. Exactly. And then can I ask you then on the other coin, if that gentleman that was there would tell us the same thing, should we take your story as the truth or his story as the truth?
Now,
you see how
you mean
kind of complicated?
if he was to also write out,
right.
then you would
so
be
we're stuck in the same problem, right? And I think,
I'll bet you he wouldn't though, and then he would.
No, I realize that, but we can't be biased, right?
That's
so, and I think that's where Officer Butters was at. Okay, so he was at a situation where that gentleman was giving him a story that he's like, well, if I believe him, and I know you're covered, you're completely right. Like, no one should be threatening to assault you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that gentleman felt that for some reason, you being close to him, whether you were or not, I can't believe you. I can't believe him.
That's right. I understand
that he felt like he was covered under ARS for assault, for instance.
Yeah.
And the way it reads could possibly be like anything that you're doing could put him under the pretense that he could be assaulted. Not necessarily threatened to be assaulted, but actually physically be assaulted.
Right.
And that's what happened here. I think his justification to telling you what he told you, as Officer Butters understood it, basically he felt like you were infringing on his space, possibly to assault him, whatever the case is. And you're right. And that's his justification to tell you what he told you. Now, could he have used a lot better language? I did listen to the video, and he was throwing like F-bombs or whatever. And to me, like, I think that it just exacerbates the situation. I think you did the right thing by calling us. Like, definitely didn't confront him at all after that. Whether you were on his space or not, we can't prove that. Whether he was telling the truth, we can't prove that. Whether you were the one telling the truth, nothing but the truth, we can't prove it. Again, because you said we can't remain unbiased. And when he investigated the situation, he was pretty much left at an impasse. Like, who do I choose? I can't pick one or the other. And you have it in your paperwork. Nobody was harmed. Obviously, there was threats. And then obviously he thought you may want to assault him, and that's why he told you what he told you. But you even have it in your paperwork. Like, there's no crime if nobody's getting injured, right?
So let me say,
go ahead.
What I think, if I had wanted to push it, how I figured due process would have required that we would have proceeded. It would have been, I don't see how he could have arrested him legitimately, just maybe give him a notice.
So now you agree, right?
But so if I had decided to push and actually write under and sign under penalty of perjury that happened, then I figured the due process would have required they give him a notice to appear to court, and it would have come down to either a judge or jury trial to make the decision.
Yeah, perfect.
But I just didn't want to push it.
Yeah, I get it, man. So I think here, would you agree that the issue wasn't necessarily that Officer Butters, that nobody got arrested, but maybe that just this situation was a big miscommunication between
Maybe so.
the officers and that gentleman.
Yeah, because in this instance, my only issue is that he seemed to be saying that this guy does have the rights to threaten me because of this virus issue.
And I think he maybe just misspoke.
Okay.
He doesn't have the right to threaten you, but he does have a right under ARS to defend himself as he sees appropriate.
And like you saw in the video, that he said you were like this, and I was like, well, I guess maybe then.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So whether he wants to believe him that you were this close, or believe you that you were that far away, the truth's somewhere in the middle. I'm not saying you're lying. But at that moment in time, there was no probable cause to arrest you or arrest him. You see what I'm saying?
So then you see at the end of this incident that night, then I had decided that okay, I guess I can let that go.
Because you went and talked to him, right?
But then when my friend told me about those other things, and I've got about 150 videos I've been reviewing from years of this with cops, and I remember at least one of them was that same AJ Butters.
150 hours?
Videos.
Oh, videos.
Of me with cops that I'm reviewing right now. I remember I have at least one other incident with that same officer, and I'm pretty sure that he was doing some things that were unconstitutional then. So when I find that, I'll provide that to you.
That'd be perfect. Yeah. And then for the other issues that you talked about, you with your friend that made you speak, can you just let your friend know if he does like a legitimate concern, just to call us?
Talking to him.
Talk to him. And have him put the burden on him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that way it's not just you trying to talk for him. Does that make sense?
So at this point, I guess what I would think the appropriate thing for you guys would be just to basically have a talk with the officer and show him how. Oh, and let me make another point.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
The first criminal complaint I ever filed was on behalf of another inmate for assault on the inmate, and that guard was fired within 3 days.
The deal?
Yeah. And the
Where was
first.
this at?
I think it was when they were holding me in jail for that assault on an officer several years ago. In
Arizona still?
Durango, maybe.
Oh, Durango. Okay.
And then at the same time, I filed my first and only bar complaint for an inmate who was being ignored by his lawyer, and we got a notice back. They were placed on diversion classes, and they stopped ignoring him.
Wow, man. That's
so my
awesome,
point being that
you're a smart person, brother.
I told my friend if you or your tenants want to provide me with an affidavit, I'll file charges.
Especially those girls, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I told him,
and we should have record of that. That's something that's pretty serious.
Yeah.
Okay? So do that, and if they have that record, we can probably find that record. Right?
Yeah. So let me finish saying on that. So,
my bad. Sorry
about that. So if they do give me an affidavit, I told them I'll help file charges against that officer Butters, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
So as of this moment, unless I find something worth acting on in my videos against him, then I think this will resolve it with him.
Yeah.
As long as he starts doing his job better.
Would you agree that he didn't do anything wrong, but I think it was more the message.
Probably. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And
I'll
his
definitely
attitude.
talk to him about it.
His attitude, seriously, he needs to work on that.
I'll talk to him about it.
Being confrontational, and that's what my friend was really, really mad about.
Your friend?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a baddie.
That this officer, he's confrontational towards the victim.
Right.
And he's not enforcing actual crimes.
Okay.
And that needs to change.
I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
If you're good with that?
Yeah,
cool.
Because I seriously will file federal criminal charges
I
against
believe
him
you, sir.
for this. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? A personal question? So you served in the Army?
Well, I only finished basic and NOS training. I didn't do any active duty.
Oh, okay. It is what it is, man. At least you signed, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I commend you for that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
so
I memorized my oath
service.
and most of the Constitution and Declaration while I was in there.
Sir. Man, that's awesome, brother.
That's part of why I was able to do these kinds of things.
Yeah. Smart man.
Thanks.
All right, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you for signing that dotted line.
Thank you.
I know it's hard. So.
Yeah, it is.
Harley, if you don't have anything else for me, you mind if I head out?
Well, I guess the last point would be just about as far as the mayor and the Tempe police chief and their legal advisors and some judges go.
Yeah.
Is all these things I've explained to you, which are on this video.
Yeah.
Most of what they are doing and have been doing, they had better stop very soon because they are probably going to lose their jobs. Because I am prepared to file charges against them.
Okay.
For what's already happened.
Okay, Harley.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.